Hey, welcome World Entertainment, and this will be the review for Predator Killer of Killers, which is now available to watch. And I will do a non-spoiler, and then I'll get into spoilers, because you really do have to get into spoilers to cover this entire movie. Now, as you may know, it is an anthology. There are 3 parts to it. And the first part is the Vikings, the second part is the Samurai, and the third part is the pilot. So the first part is called The Shield, the second one is called The Sword, and the third one is called The Bullet. Now, the movie opens with this quote, and you're like, what the hell is this quote? It's interesting. And it has up Yautja Codex 0522-74, and it reads as follows: "Go forth among the stars and seek only the strongest prey. They shall be your trophy. Become the killer of killers." So that's the quote the movie opens with. You're like, that's an interesting quote. So what is the overall movie like without going into spoilers? It's decent. It's not mind-blowing. It does kind of do a few things that are a bit stupid because it's animation. I think they felt it might work better, which makes sense, but at the same time, when you're putting it into the universe of Predator, you're kind of like, it goes a bit too much into the bit of over-the-topness. Now, the first one, obviously, is the Viking one. Very interesting. The Predator itself in that one is great. The 3 Predators, well, mainly the first 2 Predators are great. The Viking one and the Samurai one. The third one, it's always in its ship, so it really doesn't do much compared to the other 2. So the first one, he shows up to wreak havoc, and we're following this. She's called the Sea Queen, or the Valkyrie of the Northern Seas, and she has her son with her, and the quest for vengeance, apparently she's been on since she was a small girl. She's going to avenge the death of her father. So I always thought when I heard the story that she's teaching the son and bringing the son for revenge, that it would be the son's father. It's not. Now, the one issue I think a lot of people will have with the first part is it does get a little bit girl bossy, and not in the way that is kind of like, oh, that makes no sense. They could have had it where it would work fine, but the fact that she kind of does things that you're kind of like, that's a bit too much girl boss. That probably would turn a lot of people off, and I've already heard some people say, like, as soon as they saw girl boss stuff starting, they turned it off. So just keep that in mind with the first part. It's still interesting. Again, it does have another issue. The girl boss thing is one. There is another issue, which I will get into when I get into the spoilers. The one thing throughout the whole thing is the music. The music is fantastic from start to finish. And what you'll notice is it has the Predator music in there. You know, think of the beach scene at the opening of Predator when the chopper's coming in, you hear the da-da-da-dun, da-da-da-da-dun. That's in there, but it's done in such a way that it blends in with this new music, and it's great because it's like you hear that music and it's there, but at the same time it's new. You'd have to really see what I mean, because it's great the way it's done, but it's the music is there, but there's new music around it, and it goes with each time period as well, which is great. And then the proper music kicks in the third part of the story. There is, now, this would be part of the spoiler part that we can't go into, but there is technically a 4th part to this, but you'd have to see or wait till, well, you can either, if you don't care about the movie, you can hang around for the spoilers and you'll see what I'm talking about. Otherwise, check out the movie and you'll see exactly what I mean. So the first one then by the way, each one is about 21 minutes long, each story. So the movie is like an hour and I think it's 14 minutes or something like that in total. I think it might be a bit longer. It's just under, a good bit under anyway, 90 minutes. So it's under the hour and a half, which I was curious then how they were going to do each story. And once the first part ended, I was like, how long was that? And I checked, it was 21 minutes. And then the second one was the same. The samurai one, the sword, with that one, there is basically no dialogue at all. It opens with dialogue talking about when leaves grow and trees start together, but when they fall, they're alone. Because it's in reference of the two brothers who then fight for power, basically. And it ends with a bit of dialogue referencing that thing again. Again, I won't go into that because it's spoilers, but it makes sense when you see it. So it's literally the first few seconds of the second part, the sword story, that has dialogue in it, and the very last part of that one that has dialogue. Otherwise, there's no dialogue. So it is two brothers as kids who fight for, well, the father wants them to fight to take control. One of them refuses, the other one has no problem doing it, and the other one runs away, and then years later he comes back, basically not to kill his brother, but to kind of get his comeuppance, basically. And little do they know, there's now a predator there as well watching this. The predator that's in the sword story is probably the one with the most technology. The first one in the Viking one only has that hammer hand thing. Obviously he has his face mask and can see the heat, but there's no like shoulder cannon or anything like that. None of them actually have the shoulder cannons, but he's only got the hammer hand, which he has to crank and load as well to use. The second guy, he's got lots more. He's got this spiky chain thing which just tears you a new one. He's got bombs. He's got a spear that opens up and can cut you in half. And he's got the double blades on the wrist. So he's got a lot more, and yeah, he utilizes everything. And it's great the way he operates and stuff. There's very interesting ways to get around how the guy tries to get away from him and what he does to see where it is and stuff. You've seen it in the trailer when he throws the smoke bomb, he kind of sees it, but how that one ends is interesting as well. And there's an interesting thing with the end of each one as well. And then we get to the one with the bullet, the third one, which is the pilot. So he gets drafted to the army, and this is actually the only other one that gives a date that this one takes place. I think it said November. Was it November? Somewhere, I think in the Atlantic Ocean or Arctic Ocean somewhere, in 1942. So that's where that one takes place. The Viking one, I think if I remember correctly, it says 183 AD, I think. I don't recall them putting up one for the samurai. I don't think they gave a date for the samurai one. But the third one is this 1942, and he's not a pilot. He's actually meant to be a mechanic, but he's not good at being a mechanic. He's an ensign. The guy who's his commanding officer, by the way, is voiced by Michael Biehn. So anyone going, I recognize the name, can't place him. Michael Biehn, Kyle Reese, Terminator, and of course Hawk, Lieutenant Hawk in Aliens. So he voices the commanding officer in that third part. Not a lot of them, but it's decent when he's there. So that's the one with the Predator who basically is fighting in the air. It's dog fighting. And the way that one operates is interesting because it's that you've seen in the trailer, those chain things that come through and grab you and pull you through. It locks onto heat. So it's not actually targeting the people, it's targeting the engines of the planes. And the way that one ends up as well is interesting. It doesn't just use that spike thing. It has like the net. You remember the net the Predator can fire that squeezes you? It's got another version of that wraps around the planes, and then it's got another one that kind of spins around the planes and stuff. So it's interesting. Now, this third one does something that I think is, they were like, well, we can do it because it's animation, and it's still a bit stupid when you see it. In fact, it does two things, and you're kind of like, that's a bit ridiculous. One of them I can tell you because it's not a spoiler really, is when our main character, I can't even remember his name, I think it's Lewis or something like that. He tries to get away from the ship and he flies down in through a town, but he's literally flying in this little French village. I think it's French. Oh, they were speaking French in it anyway. And like, think of like Venice. Think of how close the buildings are in those type of little tight streets. And he's flying the plane down that. Like, he's got it on its side, flying it down, trying to get away. And it's like, that's just a bit stupid that you're doing that. But you're clearly only doing that because of the animation. You know, if this was live action, you definitely wouldn't be giving that a try. Overall, because I'll have to go into spoilers now. Overall, though, it's decent. The second part, the samurai, is probably the best part. Although there are some really good parts with the third part. The first one, again, it goes a bit too girl bossy for one moment. That kind of, it does take away from it. And it's not, people will go, oh, you just don't like that girls can do it. For a lot of you who've seen it and who will stick around for the spoiler part, you'll see exactly what I mean. But other than that, yeah, it's just, trust me, it's a bit over the top. But overall, what would I give it? Well, I'll give you a rating if you're not sticking around for the spoilers. So my rating for this would probably be in and around a 7 out of 10. The animation is cool. It gets a bit janky in the first one, and only the first one, which is weird. But overall, it's decent. It's good. The music, as I said, is great, and the voice acting for the most part is pretty cool as well. So yeah, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. So with that, I will now have to go into the spoilers because it's the only way I could finish off talking about this thing. So you've been warned, and if you don't want to know any spoilers, cheers for being here, and catch you in the next one. Other than that, let's get into the spoilers. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, full spoilers ahead. The issue with the first part is when she goes girl boss. When I say she goes girl boss, she comes in. You see it in the trailer when the gates open and she's standing there. That's her coming into her enemy's place. She goes from there halfway into the compound, beating the ever-loving hell and killing all the big dudes on her own. And only halfway into her doing that does the rest of her squad come in and help her. But she's like taking down with ease the guys. Now the cool thing with her shields is the shield she has actually has blades on the edges. So she's cutting limbs off and stuff. But she's still like just punching and beating and throwing big guys around. And that's where it gets really girl boss. That was my biggest issue with the first part. The second part, my issue with the first part is the Predator ends up killing itself again. And this seems to be a thing with Dan Trachtenberg when you watch this whole movie and you see Prey is, when the girls face it, they kill themselves. How does he kill himself? Well, she has her shield there under the water under ice, and he cranks up. Well, she cranks up his hammer hand. He's about to fire. She pulls out the shield. He fires it at her, which throws her up out of the ice, so she escapes. But it pushes, the force of it pushes him back and sticks his head through a big spike in the ground under the water. So all in all, it kills itself, just like it did in Prey. Here's the interesting thing though. She comes back up to her son. Her son is dead now. And it fades to her sitting in what looks like a cell with a collar on. And you're like, what the hell? But then you see a guy kneeling in front of her, and he's got a collar too on. And that's when we go into the second part, which is the samurai one. Now, the samurai one, the two brothers end up having to team up to kill this Predator after they've been fighting each other. And they do. They end up having to fight. One of them gets mortally wounded, though. The Predator, stabs him, and he ends up dying. But then we see that he is also now on this cargo thing with her behind him. The Viking bitch behind him. And he's got the collar on. And you're like, how could the Viking be in the same period now as the Japanese warrior? When the guy, the pilot, is fighting, now this is the thing I didn't want to say in the non-spoiler section because it's a bit spoilery, but it's stupid. And this is how he figures out that the Predator's using heat, or at least the ship is only tracking heat. His engine, well, not his engine, he's on the plane and the fuel tank on the side catches fire. He climbs out onto the wing and kicks that off. And of course, the Predator fires the spike tracking thing, which follows that as it's falling because that's hotter. And he realizes, hey, heat, it's tracking heat. So his plan is we need to fly up as high as we can to cool the engines off, and then we'll turn the engines off and all this stuff. That Predator basically kills itself as well because he manages to trick it to fire one of them things. He gets the plane behind it so it swings all the way around when the engine comes out and hits in and destroys that. But then we see him in a cryopod and he gets woken up. He doesn't have the collar on. He wakes up and he's like, wait, how long have I been asleep? And we're basically into a fourth part of the story now. He's been brought out then by a couple of Predators. He's put into the cell. He now has, they put the collar on him. He tries to speak with your woman. She spits in his hand. He's like, that's lovely. He starts talking to the Japanese guy. The Japanese guy talks back. Of course, they're talking in their native tongues. The guy goes, oh, you're Japanese. We had to learn some of this. And he starts trying to speak Japanese to him. Turns out they're on a ship. The ship lands, or at least you think they're on a ship. The ship lands. He gets abducted, by the way. We see him getting abducted. And it's funny because when that happens, that's where the real Predator music kicks in. And the ship takes off from over his garage and left a crop circle. But they're brought out of the cell and all these other Predators start kneeling to them. And this big door thing comes down and they come out and they realize, okay, I don't think we're on Earth anymore. They're in a big arena and there's chanting going on from all the other Predators. Then a ship comes down and this giant Predator comes out, this warlord Predator, who I did a video on, who has a cape made of bones, the spinal cords of other Predators, and his face mask is that of another Predator. And we hear for the first time Predators speaking. So the collars are bombs. So basically you fight to the death or they detonate it and blow your head off. But it also, when he speaks, it's translating into their native language what he's saying. So he's saying, right, 3 of the best warriors, you now have to fight each other to the death. Only one can survive, and if whoever survives, you get to face me. They're all now trying to talk to each other. Well, bar the Viking woman. This is the funny part. She just wants to get back to her son, who's dead. So she wants to go to Valhalla. And yet she's trying to fight the other guys and tell my son I'll be seeing him soon. It's like, if you want to just go to Valhalla and see your son, why don't you just stand there and die? Either way, she doesn't. She's fighting. It's like, all right, that's a bit dumb. But the Japanese guy and the pilot guy realize now if we team together, we've a better chance of taking these things down. And the Japanese guy is saying, look, me and my brother had to work together to take one of these things down. She can't obviously understand what the hell he's saying. He can't understand what she's saying. The pilot dude can't understand what either of them are saying. They start fighting. It's not going great. What does the big warlord Predator do? Kind of gives a signal to other ones, hits a little button, and a big door opens, and this gigantic beastie comes out. The beastie swallows the pilot. I think the pilot's name is Trevor. I think it's Trevor Lopez or something like that. I think I said Lewis earlier. I don't think it's that. I think it's Trevor. Either way, he gets swallowed and you think, well, that's the end of him. No, he's still alive, but he finds another Predator's hand in the stomach that this thing had just eaten. Manages to open it, stabs the Predator from the inside. Then the Viking and the Japanese warrior realize they have to work together. They take this thing down. Their collars come off because the big Predator's like, okay, fine, yous both die. And he's going to set the things off and their collars fall off. Finn comes out on a bike yoke and he's like, hey, are we friends now? And he hit the buttons to release them and stop the countdown. They go up, drive up towards the warlord Predator. They start fighting him. Trevor gets into the ship. He's trying to figure out how to fly the ship to get them out of there. The Japanese dude and the Viking one, they're doing okay against this thing. They don't at the start. They're just getting whooped at the start. But they eventually get on the ship and start escaping. But they fire another big chain thing through it. And the Viking decides she's going to sacrifice herself and says to them, in her native tongue of course, don't avenge me. She goes down, gets captured by them, she breaks that thing so the chain releases. She's taken prisoner, doesn't kill her, And the big guy just turns around, watches them fly off, and then just says, let's go hunting, and raises his fist with his axe in his hand, and you just see a ton of ships taken off. And you think, is that the end? No, that's not the end, because then we see that they put the Viking one back into cryostasis, and they're walking through this chamber. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say, when they're fighting in the arena, they're given weapons from their time period, supposedly. The Viking is given her axe. The Japanese guy is given his samurai sword. The pilot is given a flintlock. Guess what the flintlock is? Yeah, you've guessed it already. It's the flintlock from Predator 2 and Prey. Keep that in mind. So when we see the Viking being wheeled through this chamber filled with cryopods, we see some weird alien thing in one. And then we stop at one as they continue to go past, and we come in, and what's in it? Well, it's a human. What human is it? It's Naru from Prey. Our lead from Prey is in the box. So she's in cryostasis on this planet. Thing is, we don't get told when and where this Predator timeline is in terms of this homeworld. So they have a Viking from the first 100 years of Earth. They have a samurai from feudal Japan. They have a pilot from the Second World War. And they have Naru from whatever time period. I think it was 17 something. What time period have they been brought into? We don't know. We're not actually told whether we're in present day, whether we're further in the future, anything like that. All we are shown is that Naru is in cryostasis. So it looks like this thing is possibly setting up Prey 2. It's going to be interesting. But overall, there's the movie. Oh, there's no post-credit scenes or anything like that. Just when the first part of the credits come through, it has that kind of motion images thing, posters. It's interesting. You'll stick around to have a look at that. That's cool. But yeah, other than that, that's basically the whole movie. So yeah, it's decent. It starts off a bit rough, gets a little girl bossy at times, but overall, I enjoyed it. As I said in the non-spoiler, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. So overall, I would recommend you check it out. It does build onto the lore, and now we're seeing that they're taking people and putting them in cryostasis and bringing them out at what time? God only knows. All I'm surprised at this stage is we didn't see Dutch in there. Either way, we'll wait and see what the future holds. So with that, I shall leave it there for this one. Cheers, like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.